All right, it's New Year's Eve. I have a apple cranberry pie in the oven, and I thought I'd take a second and do a year-end review because I guess that's what people do on New Year's Eve. And normally I think we would look back fondly over the year and all of the good things that happened and then talk about what we look forward to in the year to come, what changes we would want to make, etc. But this wasn't a normal year, right? It's pretty devastating year for a lot of people. I don't want to do a retrospective of the headlines. I know that I make a lot of political content and I cover a lot of news. That's probably the biggest change for me personally this year in terms of my work, is that I suddenly have been delved into a world of covering all kinds of stories and topics that I didn't previously cover at all. And I do think there is some measure of utility at looking back over the year, starting in January, and taking a real assessment of all of the things that were happening back in January versus now. How much has our life changed in 1 year? I think there's a lot worthwhile in looking at that. I also think it's really helpful to look back at all of the things that the Trump regime and the Republicans were trying to do in each month of the year, and then take a tally of where were they successful, where did they fail, and likewise to take a really accurate tally of what the pro-democracy resistance has looked like month to month. What kinds of successes and setbacks have we had? Where have we effectively held the line, and where do we need to build our power for the future? But I'm not really going to do that in this video. It's 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve, and I don't really have the heart to go through all of the gut-wrenching news stories over the last year right now. And maybe that's something that would be good. That kind of post-mortem of 2025 would be good to do throughout the month of January. What is the retrospective for us as the American people for the last year? I think that's important. Helps us figure out where we want to go from here. So yeah, maybe I'll take some time and do that over January. But for me personally, right, my content, the kind of work that I do, changed dramatically starting in January when I made a post. It was like 1 a.m. when Elon Musk and his band of Shitler youth were breaking into federal offices and, uploading all of our private data onto thumb drives. I made this like 1 a.m. post that was like, hey guys, I think this might be a coup. I think we might be experiencing an auto coup in the US. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are carrying out a coup. Anybody else think that? That video went crazy viral for me, and my account just blew up from there. It was really a departure from the kind of things I had talked about before. Not that I didn't talk about politics, because permaculture is very political. You can't be a staunch believer in a philosophy of earth care, people care, and fair share in a late stage capitalist system and not be political. But for me, suddenly I felt compelled to use my platform to cover what was happening on a national scale, but not just that, to talk about what it means to live out those permaculture ethics, especially people care, and how we come together and organize for mutual aid and also for pro-democracy resistance work. So a lot of my content this year has been around that subject matter. It's been a huge change for me. Also, personally, I've gone from working 20, 30 hours a week doing social media to working 70 to 80 hours a week. And that's been hard on my family. It's been hard on me personally. I feel like I've aged 10 years in the last year. And add on top of that, all of the community organizing and volunteer work that I do. I'm so busy this year. And I kind of thought that 2025, well, before the 2024 election, I thought, oh, this will be a chance for me to finally get a little bit of rest, right? I spent years caregiving for both of my parents and then a sibling who had cancer. I've had some significant health issues. I've just had like basically 5 straight years of just like absolute shit, completely depleted. The pandemic, my life has been really rough. And I thought like, oh, 2025, I can slow down a little bit. I can relax. I can invest more in my kids and reading and my garden and knitting. And no, that's not what was in the cards. And so I've had to pivot and set aside a lot of things. My garden was fairly neglected this year. I didn't get through nearly as many craft projects. I changed the kind of books that I'm reading. I read an awful lot this year. If you want to talk about looking back over 2025, I read probably 3 dozen books that had to do with nonviolent resistance or organizing or history or government, Supreme Court case history, social justice work, the civil rights movement. Like I've just read and enriched my own personal understanding of who we are as the American people, and also the struggles that other people have had throughout history. Like I've gained so much knowledge. So that's been a really good thing for me that's come out of 2025. As exhausted as I am, as heartsick as I am over all of the things that are happening, this has not been a universally bad year. When we go through hard times, there are things that we are exposed to. There are ways that we are shaped as people, skills and knowledge that we build, relationships that we form that we would never have done otherwise if we had not had to live through this really difficult period. And so I guess that really brings me to Indivisible, because, I've done a fair amount of local organizing work and volunteer work, mostly having to do with like food banks and gardening groups and food justice, some environmentalism and some other local advocacy. And I've not really been involved on advocacy for politics on a national scale before at all. And I joined Indivisible late January, early February of this year after I saw Jessica Craven talking them up on one of her videos. And I'd been a little bit familiar with Indivisible. I knew that they were responsible for basically saving the Affordable Care Act during Trump's first term. But I didn't really know all that much about them. And I was like, you know what, I need to do something. It seems like I'm aligned with their values. I'm going to show up and hear what's going on. And I just immediately got like really plugged in. I met so many good people. And for me, it's the way that being involved in Indivisible, and I've been involved in some other different organizations, either kind of like ad hoc, community-based, what have you, as well. But kind of the core of my volunteerism this year, organizing, has been through Indivisible. And I've learned so much, and I have felt so empowered. When we're going through times like this, we can feel so powerless and we can feel so small and insignificant. And joining with other people reminds us that our contributions really matter, that we are needed, that we have a place here. It's just so good for our own morale, right? Like it's so good for my mental health to feel like I have an outlet for my sadness and frustration and anger, my outrage, right? I can do something productive with that to care for people in my community and also to push back against what's happening on all levels of government, right? But also it's the relationships. I have met and become fast friends with some really, really awesome people this year. I'm not going to embarrass any of my friends by pointing them out in particular, but there's one woman from my local Indivisible group, and we text on a regular basis. We talk on the phone, and like I didn't know her before this year. It is because of community organizing. It's because we care about the same things that we have come together and become friends. Just the most excellent people, y'all. There's so many good people out there, and getting involved in whatever group is local to you. Gosh, like you just have your faith in humanity restored. You are reminded that there are good people everywhere who want the same things you want and are willing to make sacrifices to help build the America that we all deserve. So many good people fighting for justice. At every little local corner of this country has good people who are fighting for democracy, fighting to protect others, fighting to care for other people. So even though I, knitted 4 vests and 3 cardigans in 2025, and even though I saw my social media platform like really explode, even though all 4 of my kids in college this year, starting this fall, 2 in community college and 2 at university, and like my life has changed in so many ways. And even though so many things about 2025 have been so devastating, like just so much heartache, and I realize I'm pretty insulated from a lot of what is happening. Millions of people are far more impacted by the cruelty of this regime than my family is. But I actually feel like we are going through this crucible right now, and that I have more hope for how we come out on the other side than I have had in a long time. Working class in this country has been steadily crushed under the weight of the oligarchy for many years, and I feel like we've now come to this pivotal moment where we get to make history. And it sucks. It's terrible that there's been so much suffering this year, so much loss that's so needless. Out of this period of significant conflict and hardship, I just feel like going into 2026, we're going to keep struggling. We're going to keep organizing. We're going to keep building our power. We're going to keep forming those new relationships. What a privilege it is to go through a difficult period, a historic period, to choose to be on the right side of history, as difficult as this last year has been. And I have a lot of hope for 2026, and I know that I'm entering into that year with so many more friendships, so much more knowledge and skill than I had entering into 2025. We are stepping into 2026 together, and we are the ones that get to shape what it will look like.